Welcome to Pure Nonfiction, the podcast interviewing documentary filmmakers. I'm Tom Powers, the artistic director of New York's documentary festival, Doc NYC. On this episode, I talked to activist Joshua Wong. He's the subject of the Netflix documentary, Joshua, Teenager versus Superpower. At the age of 14, Joshua started protesting moves by the Chinese government to exert more control over his city of Hong Kong.
Before I involved in politics, I'm just a normal student, a normal kid. I went to school, put effort in my study, but those days are now gone. Instead of just focusing on GPA, why don't try to care about the city that we live and the city that we love?
The history goes back to 1997, when Joshua was only 1 year old. That year, Hong Kong changed its status from a British colony to join the People's Republic of China. As part of the transition, Hong Kong kept its own laws, including freedoms of press and assembly. The slogan in China was, "One country, two systems." But that philosophy has repeatedly been tested as leaders in Beijing try to inject more of their system. In 2011, China moved to impose its national education curriculum into Hong Kong schools. That was the move that sparked Joshua and his friends to form a protest group called Scholarism.
I founded Scholarism while I'm 14 years old. What we hope to do is just demand for freedom of mind and freedom of speech to show our disagreement to brainwashing education.
In Joshua, Teenager versus Superpower, we watch as their small grassroots effort grows into a massive act of civil disobedience. In 2014, thousands of protesters conducted a street occupation known as the Umbrella Movement that resulted in a violent backlash from the police. The movement called for greater democracy in choosing Hong Kong's leaders instead of having them picked in Beijing.
The future of Hong Kong should be decided by Hong Kongers instead of the Chinese government.
Joshua's prominence has caused him to be physically attacked and persecuted. This year, he spent 2 months in prison for charges dating back to the 2014 protests. He was released last month, just as a new wave of Hong Kong protests were taking place, with over 1 million people in the streets. My meeting with him took place 2 years ago at the Sundance Film Festival, when Joshua, Teenager versus Superpower had its premiere. He was joined by the film's American director, Joe Piscatella. They are a surprise pairing in a way. Piscatella has a background writing animated cartoons, including the Disney movie Underdog. But he's since focused on real-life underdogs. His first documentary was called #Chicago Girl, about an American teenager using the internet to support Syria's revolution. Following that, he was brought into Joshua's story by producers Andrew Duncan and Matthew Torn. Their team had been filming with Joshua from early on. So let's get into this conversation, recorded in January 2017 when Joshua was 19. It starts with Joe explaining how the film covered the Umbrella Movement from a multitude of sources.
We found there was this network of citizen journalists that were on the ground in Hong Kong who, captured things that either our cameras couldn't get or didn't get, or that we just couldn't be at. And suddenly we found you could just fill out anything you needed. So, it's kids with cell phones and cameras. Somebody somewhere shot it. It was just a matter of tapping into that network and finding them.
Joshua, you've had a lot of media attention. At what point did you become aware that, Joe wanted to make a film about you, that this group of American filmmakers wanted to make a film about you, and how were you thinking about it?
A few years ago, I met Andrew in New York, and Andrew told me that he's quite interested to my story and hope it to produce to be an international documentary to let more people to know about the situation in Hong Kong. So that's the starting one for me to involve in this project, and I'm quite enjoy it. And I just watched this documentary last November for the first time, and the second time is few days ago, and I I think how this documentary record my 6 year journeys would be inspired. I just hope it can inspire more people.
So did the project get going before the umbrella movement of fall of 2014, or were you kind of starting the project after that had already taken place?
Footage had been being filmed really since late 2011, early 2012. And then there was just, cameras were rolling, and I think we was trying to figure out what are you going to do with the story, and the story just kept going on and on. And I came onto it later and just realized there was just an amazing amount of footage that our producer Matthew Torn had been getting. And between that and, some of the footage that we were getting from some citizen journalists, there was just kind of the first half of the movie was already there. It was a matter of how do you capture the second half and figure out what the ending is for these kids' story, at least this chapter of it.
So, Joshua, this film really begins, I think you were around 14 years old, and leading a movement around the issue of education in Hong Kong. Can you explain to people who haven't seen the film what that movement was, why you were going out in the streets?
Hong Kong is under the rule of China, but it still have approximation of autonomy. But in the recent year, China government just increased its influence and interference to Hong Kong. And in 6 years ago, 2011, it planned to introduce the national education school curriculum, and it forced every student in Hong Kong should show their loyalty to Communist Party of China. So I just found the student activist group, and through street promotion, rally, demonstration, and in 2012 result with 100,000 people occupy on the street for 9 days, and it forced the government to put aside the implementation of school curriculum. And we successfully win in this battle of the anti-brainwashing education school curriculum from starting point with just only 100 people in the rally and result in 100,000 people in the Occupy civil disobedience.
There's a journalist in the film who essentially says, for a Hong Kong parent, this would be no one's idea of a great plan for their kid. Like most Hong Kong parents want their kids to focus on schools, not get politically active, keep their head down. Why are you different?
Sometimes I think I'm still a normal high school student or university student, but it's lucky that in Hong Kong, a lot of parents, just similar to those tiger mom or helicopter parents, hope to control their son or daughters and enter the best university and find a job to be the middle class and professionals and buy the flat in the future. But it's lucky that my parents do not really control me or limited my own personal development, and they just give me enough room and space to do what I want. So it's lucky that I get a really great mom and dad, and led me to involve in social movement, even they are not the one who really interested in politics.
Interesting. What were your inspirations? Like, I think of, young activists in the United States maybe would take inspiration from Martin Luther King. Young activists in South Asia might take inspiration from Gandhi. I wonder what your influences were.
I don't have a particular role model for me at the starting point of involving in social movement, because I think Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, of course, they are the one who we really admire, and we really think they are the one who contribute a lot in the previous day. But in Hong Kong, we have diverse political system, cultural history. But what we hope is just have a simple reflection in the starting point. Being a citizen, live in Hong Kong, if this is a place we're born, we live, and we love, how can we contribute to the development of our society?
Joe, as tensions were mounting during the fall of 2014, for the team of people who were working on this film covering the citizens movement, were there challenges to practicing journalism in Hong Kong?
There were, and as Matthew Torn can attest to, when they started filming, it was fairly easy. You could roll a camera whenever you wanted, and then just as the story went on and on, it just got harder and harder to film. There were more police crackdowns. There was more adversity to try to get footage out. We were doing things like hiding hard drives or stashing hard drives in other places in case the hard drive you took to the airport got snatched. So suddenly we really had to look at how are you going to get the story out, because it just wasn't as simple as it was, well, when they started filming in 2012.
When you described those measures, were they ultimately precautionary, or did the people working on this film ever, have hard drives taken or things like that?
We didn't have any issues with hard drives being taken. We had issues at certain rallies where cameramen were targeted with pepper spray. But for the most part, it ended up, it was precaution. Just we didn't know if you were going to get to the airport or your car was going to get pulled over and you were going to have to hand over everything you had just shot.
Joshua, in the course of this, you've experienced physical attacks. You've done some short stints in jail and with a lot of legal pressure hanging over you. And I wonder where you draw your courage from.
I draw my courage from my hope to future. And I would say that compared to a lot of politicians or activists, they may already graduate from university. They need to worry for their salary and worry for their parents, and even there's a lot of burden from maybe their son or daughters. It's not easy for them to stand in the front line. But without a lot of burden from my family, and I'm still in school, I do not need to worry about to finding a job in the future. Even I think it's really hard for me to find a job in the future. But I would just say that greater influence come with greater responsibility, and greater responsibility come with greater price. And I just hope to, through the influence I developed since the anti-national education brainwashing movement, and to let more people to know that it's the time for the new generation to commit on the democracy movement. It's not easy road for us. The path towards democracy face a lot of challenging time and complicated issue. But in this long-term battle, fight against the largest communist regime in the world, we just keep on and fight. And I'm always remind myself, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and still be optimistic. I believe one day we can get back democracy in Hong Kong and even China.
Joe, as someone who's an outsider to this movement, but obviously spent a lot of time thinking about it and watching it, I'm sure you feel a closeness to the people who are on screen in this film. I wonder what you think of the dynamics of this movement. It strikes me that the last film you made, Chicago Girl, it captures a kind of hopeful time in the Arab Spring in Syria. And in years since then, that's become more darker and darker. And so I wonder, as you watch this movement progress, what your hopes, fears for it were.
My hopes, obviously, are that Joshua and all of his friends get to achieve what they set out to achieve, and that everybody in Hong Kong gets that freedom and democracy that they have fought so hard for. My fears are that it's getting worse. I mean, even since we've stopped rolling cameras, Nathan, who you meet in the film, who is elected to the Legislative Council at the end, is now under enormous pressure. I mean, the government is suing him. They're trying to bankrupt him. They're trying to force him out of office. Joshua, a couple of weeks ago, along with Nathan, were in the Taipei airport, and they were attacked. They were attacked a second time coming into the Hong Kong airport. I mean, these are areas that are supposed to have high security, and they're not. And just looking at the tactics that are being used, they're more brazen than they were a year ago or 18 months ago. That's my fear, is that, China's not going to stop on this. And you've got these kids who I've grown very attached to, and you just want what's best for them, because I have such admiration and such respect for, the way that they have stood up and raised their hand and said what's going on isn't okay.
Joshua, we watch in the film the Umbrella movement and the Occupy movement, where you and your fellow protesters for several months were occupying a portion of Hong Kong. And ultimately it comes to an end and people are cleared out. And I wonder, with perspective, what you think were the positive things that came out of that movement, and what were the disappointments?
The disappointment is clearly to let people know that we have committed in the movement for 79 days, occupy on the street, but we still can't reach political reform. Until this moment, the chief executive election is only allowing 1,200 pro-Beijing elites or tycoons to vote, and usually it will even be the one bank, one vote, and those banks are the pro-China bank. So in the umbrella movement, we can't reach the goal of political reform and universal suffrage. But with the new generation political awareness and the international community support, I think it's also the things that we gain positively after the movement. And just like after the umbrella movement, how the international community still keep the eyes in Hong Kong and show their strongly support to Hong Kong, and especially in Hong Kong, the press freedom is continually eroded by China. Most of the newspaper in Hong Kong is already standing in the side of Beijing, so it's necessary to get the international media to support us. And besides, I would say that with the new generation political awareness, we create a miracle in last year's September election. Nathan Law, who is the umbrella movement student leader, is still a 23 years old university student, and he's successfully being elected to be the legislative council member, and is the youngest lawmaker in Hong Kong history. I believe before the umbrella movement, no one will believe a university student can become a legislator. But with the spirit of umbrella movement, and we just bring our voice and our courage from the street to the council, from the civil society to the institution, and it done, and we reached the goal in last year, September.
Joe, as you've talked to other journalists who covered this territory, I wondered, do people see this as something really localized to Hong Kong, or is some of this, spirit of a democracy movement, do they see it crossing over into other parts of China?
I think the hope is that it will cross over into other parts of China. I mean, when I took on this story, yes, it was a local story, and it was something that was local just to Hong Kong, but my goal with it was, how do you make it a more universal story? How do you focus on these characters? How do you get people to get behind something this big? I mean, it's something I found, whether my last film or this film, is it's very hard to get people to pay attention to a particular issue. But if I can get them to care about somebody like Joshua, then they're going to pay attention to the issue at hand.
Joshua, I wonder how you see it. You talk about China being one country, two systems. Your efforts in the film are really focused on Hong Kong. How much do you see that movement crossing over into the rest of China?
Hong Kong is the gateway and a first step for democratization in China, because Hong Kong is already the best place, having the highest priority to reach to democracy, human rights, and freedom. So if we hope finally China can get democracy back, the first step is let Hong Kong get back democracy. So being one of the Hong Kong people and also living under the rule of China government, I think people in Hong Kong will bear a huge responsibility to get the first step for reach democratization under the rule of Communist Party of China.
We happen to be speaking 2 days after Donald Trump's inauguration. There are a lot of concerns in this country about the future of democracy here and threats to free speech. And I wonder, if you think there are things to be learned from the events in this film that can be applied to America today.
I think so. I mean, I think the film, for me, has taken on a secondary meaning even from since I finished it, just within the last couple of months. And I look at how Joshua has gone out and inspired an entire generation in his home. And I think that we could use some of that here. People who are just willing to stand up and look at what is going on in our own country and say, I don't think this is okay, and we need to figure out how to fix it.
Joshua, I'm sure you've got your hands full just focused on the issues in your own country, but I wonder how the U.S. election looks to you.
I've visited United States last November after the day of election, so it shocked a lot of people with the election result. And I would say that the lesson that can learn for people in U.S. or in different countries is if you hope the society get changed, don't just act as a passive citizen, vote and do nothing. If you hope society get changed, action, social movement is the way out to let people consolidate the civil society and create a miracle in the future.
Joe, Joshua described seeing the film for the first time in November. What was it like for you to share the film with him? Did you have concerns about that experience?
I did. Anytime you make a film about somebody, you're terrified that they're going to turn to you and say, that wasn't it, or that just didn't work for me. I wasn't in the room with Joshua when he watched it. One of our producers was with him and screened it for him. And Joshua actually, they called me on the phone, and Joshua just said, that was amazing. And it's that moment of relief where you're like, oh, okay, we can go screen this together.
When you watched it, Joshua, was there anything that stood out to you, anything that surprised you, anything that you hadn't noticed as you had experienced it the first time?
Of course, all of the footage I experienced, but I love this documentary because it records the 6-year journey, especially those happy memory with students in scholarism or Demosisto, the new formed political party, how we start from zero and continue to consolidate and to build up our organization and push forward the movement and create one miracle. So I would say that I really thank you for whole of the documentary production team to put a lot of effort to record the happy memory of this 6-year journey.
I want to thank Joshua Wong and Joe Piscatella for speaking with me. Our conversation was recorded in January 2017 at the Sundance Film Festival. You can watch the documentary Joshua, Teenager vs. Superpower on Netflix. Thanks to our team, series producer Hannah Nordenswan, sound recordist Michael Scotti Jr., and web designer Cross Strategy. Our theme music is composed by Andre Williams. Our executive producer is Raphael Nehausen. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Pure Nonfiction. I'm Tom Powers. You can follow me on Twitter at THOM Powers. You can read our show notes, learn about live events, and sign up for our newsletter at purenonfiction.net.